What is up, guys? It's me, the ALE Prince, and I'm here to give you another failed champions. What happens when you have the master of the 619 become world champion out of nowhere? Well, you get what you get. That was super terrible. What we got 2006 was a very interesting year. Not a terrible year, but it was just kind of like really damn forgettable. Nothing memorable in the SmackDown side of things. Raw was honestly doing a lot of decent things, mainly Edge and John Cena. But as far as like a legit story going forward as on SmackDown, it was just bad, and it mainly had to do with Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio, after 15 years ago, he became the world heavyweight champion, and his reign began. And it was just like, why did it fail? Well, let's just start it from the top. So, first and foremost, the man just kept losing. It is so hard to be taken serious as the underdog losing all the fucking time. He lost to the great Khali. He lost to Mark Henry. He lost to Finlay. That's right. My name is Finlay, and I love to fight. Now, I like 2 out of 3 of those people. Um, and it was just like, why did they beat the world champion? Keep in mind, Mark Henry wasn't the world, like the power of the Hall of Pain Mark Henry yet. Finlay was at best a mid card talent, and like I said, I like Finlay, but god damn it, why did he win? If you're gonna beat the champion, you're automatically the world champion. Like if you're gonna beat the world champion, then you deserve the belt. Like it just he looked like a weak champion all the time, and this underdog story it just wasn't working with him, which leads me to my next point. When he did defend that belt, he barely even won a match. Uh, the only match I could truly remember him winning fair and square was at Judgment Day against JBL. But keep in mind, that was JBL. Uh, it just wasn't legit. Like it wasn't. It didn't feel like there was a real threat. I mean, there was a lot of threats. There's way too many threats. That's the problem. And there was no one to like that he could beat. Like even his match with Sabu, he couldn't win. It ended in a no contest. Like get the fuck out of here. He should have won fair and square or don't even have the match at all. Like what the hell are they thinking? It leads me to another point. There wasn't a legit, like credible, like contender to fight him. Like every great champion has someone against him, and it kind of has the same problem with Jinder Mahal and Seth Rollins and like other failed champions. Like there wasn't a credible person against Rey Mysterio around this time. I know. Unfortunately, Eddie passed. We'll get to him later. Chris Benoit was a face. Kurt Angle was leaving to TNA. Randy Orton got suspended. So there wasn't really anybody credible. Like the only one I could have legitimately bought as like a person to fight Rey Mysterio is Randy Orton. But like I said, he got suspended, so they had to go with JBL. Who, don't get me wrong, JBL was a world champion by this point. He was the longest reigning SmackDown WWE champion at the time. So clearly, he was credible, but he wasn't that credible. Let's be honest with ourselves. JBL, as great as a character and as decent of a wrestler that he is not that damn credible. He really is not. Like, don't get me wrong, he made John Cena. That will never be taken away from him. He gave us John Cena, for better or for worse. But yeah, there was nobody that like could have stood like if Kurt Angle stuck around, I think Kurt and Ray could have carried SmackDown. That would have been great. Big nostalgia of like the SmackDown 6 and Legendary. And that could have been a great story to tell. There was different little stories you could have told with Rey Mysterio if given the right stories, but they never bothered to do so. Which leads me to my next point, and that is he was barely in the main event. Yes, He was either the opening act, the middle of the act, but he barely even closed. And then when he did close, he lost to the great Khali of all people. Like I said, it's hard to be taken serious when you're not the main event. Now, if you looked at my past failed champions, Jinder Mahal, he was barely on the main event segment. He was like in the middle of the show. Seth Rollins, he was also in the middle of the show. Rey Mysterio, sometimes he was even barely even shown on TV. But there was other things that the WWE was hyping over this, and there was like Undertaker versus the Great Khali. At one point, Benoit and Finlay were getting more attention than Ray was. This is not me saying it for the sake of it, but this is true. And King Booker, who eventually took the belt off of Ray, he ended up being more relevant. Like he was in every segment, he was everywhere, and this is prior to him even becoming world champion. Booker T was everywhere. King Booker, to say the least. He was everywhere. Ray was barely even shown anywhere. And something I did see out of Ray that he wrestles a lot different as a world champion than he does um, as a like some people are just meant to be chasers and some people are meant to be uh championship holders. Like Stone Cold has recently been noticing this with himself and Taker, and then he even says that Drew McIntyre is a great championship holder than a chaser. And Rey Mysterio is always meant to be a chaser. He's a better chaser than he is a champion. And it really shows right after he lost the belt. He was feuding with Chavo Guerrero, and this felt the most legit ever. Like this is the most legit I've ever seen Rey Mysterio in a storyline. So uh, which also leads me to a next thing. If you have noticed all of other Rey Mysterio championship reigns, particularly world title reigns, he's a great, excuse me, he's a great transitional champion. Think about it. This is his first world title. The next time he became world champion was back in 2010, where he won that fatal four-way with Big Show, Jack Swagger, and CM Punk. Remember when Jack Swagger was the world heavyweight champion? Remember that shit? Yeah, he took the belt off of Jack, and he lost it at the next pay per view after being cashed in by Kane. And then the other time he became world WWE champion, to say the least. He beat The Miz and the opening match, and then the main event, it was him and Cena, and the belt got off of him right away. I've always said that if Ray was going to be a transitional champion that time, he should have at least held it up to SummerSlam, and then the main event's Ray and Cena at SummerSlam. That would have been a draw. That would have been smart for business instead of bringing CM Punk right away. Yeah, they missed the ball on that. But the point I'm trying to say is that Rey Mysterio can make the world championship look good when he's holding it for somebody else. Some people are great transitional champions and they make stars out of it. Look at the Iron Sheik. Iron Sheik held the WWF championship for a week to drop it to Hulk Hogan. And look at where Hulk Hogan is now. Granted, not in the best terms right now, but he's a big name. And some people are meant to just do that for their champions. And it leads me to honestly the real reason why he failed. He won it out of Eddie Guerrero's death. There's no way of sugarcoating it, but if Eddie never died, Ray would have never been in this position. You could say that. With that said, there's another reason why Ray was the world champion. Batista was injured. There was nobody left around this time. Like there was no credible baby face to uh be the next world champion. If they were gonna do a tribute to Eddie, which personally I hated the whole storyline with Kurt Angle as the face, even though he just came out of being a heel against John Cena. Randy Orton lost the Royal Rumble match. He beat him Rey Mysterio at No Way Out. Then they inserted Rey Mysterio in the match anyways, and then it became a triple threat, and then It only lasted 8 minutes. It was just a sloppy mess. Don't get me wrong, the match and the story was solid. It was just a sloppy way of putting everything together. And if you guys remember, at WrestleMania 22, people were cheering Kurt Angle. They were cheering Randy Orton. And Rey Mysterio was kind of like, do we really want to put the belt on this guy? And part of it was the journey. It's just it was a bad journey to get there. Um, some people have suggested, and I've heard this from everyone. Apparently, the plan was to do Batista and Randy Orton for the World Heavyweight Championship, and then Chris Benoit versus Rey Mysterio, and that would have been the tribute to Eddie Guerrero, two of Eddie's best friends going at it for the United States Championship. And honestly, that I really wish that happened. Unfortunately, Batista got injured, so that's good. Thank God they did not go with Chris Benoit. Imagine that, like a person who did what he did, becoming a two-time world champion in the WWE. Jesus Christ, that would have been horrible for the business. This would have really ruined them. But and to top it off, Rey Mysterio was just bad at the ratings. He didn't. I mean, he was a good draw for like T-shirts and stuff like that. But as far as TV viewership, it was pretty bad. It picked up when Booker won it, and it definitely was doing pretty good when Kurt was the world champion. So there's ways of doing it. If you're gonna make someone the world champion, that champion needs to be the top face or heel. They have to be everywhere. And I've always complained about how even in other companies, not just WWE, but Impact Wrestling and AEW are doing this where the world champion is on one segment and then that's it. They're not even in the main segment, they're like in the middle of it. A world champion needs to be the center focus of your show. Stone Cold Steve Austin was on an episode of Raw literally every second of it. He was in the opening act, he was in the middle of the show, and he was in the end of the show. He was in the middle of everything. The last person who did this was CM Punk. So keep that in mind. The last person to do that is CM Punk. And then actually, scratch that. The last person who did that was AJ Styles. And look at that guy. He is also one of the biggest names in the WWE right now. So just keep that in mind. So yeah, that's how I feel. If you're gonna make someone the world champion, they need to stay on part of the whole show. And this is not me saying that Rey Mysterio is a horrible champion, period. Because look at his IC title run; it was pretty good. But the reason why that worked is because he was a mid card champion. He didn't need to be the focus of the show. The focus around that time should have been the world champions, which at the time were CM Punk and Jeff Hardy. So there's way to work around that. Always know like where to place the champions. So that's my take on it. What do you guys think? Was Rey Mysterio a good world champion? Let me know. It's made me the ALE Double X Prince. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And until then, I'm out.